When you're on the hunt for your next adventure, it's very easy to cast your eyes to the horizon, to far-flung corners of the world where surely there must be all sorts of exotica waiting to be discovered. I am absolutely guilty of this, but I am a fool for not sharing this treasure with you until now. It's romantic and interesting and colorful and delicious. It's also right in my backyard. I've always been inexorably drawn to Chinatowns for a number of reasons. I grew up near arguably the most famous Chinatown in San Francisco, and my parents would regularly take me and my brothers there, especially as our move to Asia drew nearer. So there's definitely some nostalgia at play, but I think I truly love Chinatowns because they represent a little piece of Hong Kong, no matter where I was in the world. It is impossible to convey just how much Hong Kong means to me as a city. It was my home, it was where I grew up, got my first job. It has and will forever hold deep, deep significance to me. And knowing that Chinatowns, which by and large were built by the Cantonese, could be found in most major cities, if I was ever homesick, I could go to Chinatown and the sights, sounds, and smells would take me home again. Yay! I used to have these in my packed lunch at home, or Hong Kong. They're not even from Hong Kong, they're Japanese. But that's why I like Chinatown, because it's not just like carefully curated Hong Kong products. It's like the whole experience has been lifted and brought here. So you go into a 7-Eleven in Hong Kong and you would get Japanese, Korean, and Hong Kong, Taiwanese products as well. Like this. Hey everybody, this episode is brought to you by one of the few mobile games I actually play, Raid Shadow Legends. There's a few reasons I love this game and seem to play it with every spare moment I can find. Firstly, it's free. What's not to love about that? Secondly, I love how challenging it is, with bosses like Sylvania, who somehow manages to heal up to half her health with each turn. Absolutely terrifying. February is a busy month in the game, with a fresh rotation of the brutal Hydra boss and a ton of events and tournaments every single day, including some special Valentine's Day events, because nothing says I love you like raining down fire and brimstone, the likes of which ye have never seen. Now is the best time to get started in Raid, so if you click on the link in the description below or scan the fancy QR code that's somewhere on the screen right now, not only will you help me pay to make these episodes, but you will also get a bunch of free stuff too, like an epic champion, 200k in silver, 1 energy refill, that kind of thing. Don't worry, it'll all make sense once you get into the game and you'll see everything that you get as well. So click on that link, scan the QR code, and I'll see you in there. Come find me. I'm the Orc. They're a little weird when you think about it, Chinatowns, incongruous. A whole community lifted wholesale with all of its idiosyncrasies and dropped in the heart of a city it has nothing to do with on the other side of the planet. They're pastiche, admittedly, in some aspects, but somehow paradoxically also authentic enough, to use a dangerous word, to attract the hungry and the homesick. But they are not facsimiles or gaudy caricatures of Hong Kong. If they were, then it would stay stuck in the epoch from which it came. Chinatowns, especially this Chinatown, have the unique ability to evolve, not just for the needs of the community within, but also with the surroundings they find themselves in. There are two things about London's Chinatown that immediately set it apart from its counterparts. It's not big, and it's not old. London's Chinatown as an entity has only taken root since the 1970s. Back then, this sliver of streets was a dingy no man's land between Covent Garden and Soho. Now, it's surrounded by some of the most expensive real estate on earth. This has put massive pressure on the small family-run restaurants that were once the mainstay of this and many other Chinatowns. Some small restaurants pay £1 million a year in rent, with over half of the real estate owned by a single landowner. That, plus large mainland Chinese brands coming in with almost unlimited marketing and real estate budget, makes it almost impossible for these small restaurants to stay in business. And they are, in my opinion, what makes this and most other Chinatowns so wonderful to begin with. Before we all became the adventurous and insatiable beasts most of us are today, scouring the world for that next hit of exotic or weird eats, we were, as a people, generally terrified of anything with flavor, so the washed-out, homogenized village Chinese takeaway was about as close as you were going to get to Chinese food. Except here, London's Chinatown has over 100 restaurants, with many of them serving traditional Cantonese cuisine for generations. So when I, or anyone else who was jonesing for the good stuff, needed that next hit, we came here. Geoff Leong is a second-generation Chinatown restaurateur. His flagship restaurant, Dumplings Legend, has been a Chinatown mainstay for decades. And with 400 uncompromising dishes on the menu and an empire of 20-plus restaurants, Hong Kong-born Geoff seemed like the perfect person to tell us more about this community bound by cuisine.
Chinatown started with a because the majority of the population from the Guangdong Canton near the ports set up their own businesses, and some also setting up the food and drinks business and reflecting the taste of their palate and also the whole inclusion of other dishes. And so when I first came over, I went to boarding school, I was the only Chinese kid, and I still have this vivid memory of, wow, there's Chinese food on the menu, look, there's dumplings. But I was bitterly disappointed because it wasn't really the same dumplings I was expecting. It was the stew and dumpling, a lump of dough. I said, is that what dumpling is? So you do realize that there's a lot of this culture, description of words. And the funniest thing is that maybe the Chinese are a bit too brutal and too honest. Chicken feet, pork intestines. But look at the British, parson's nose, tripe, sweet bread, black pudding. All sounds very exotic and doesn't sound dangerous. And I think this is kind of etiquette of how we all enjoy this journey, to share our culture differences. And you have to remember, Chinese, we eat like this every day. Every day is like a banquet for us. Morning you have some bao, some dim sum, you have some noodles, but the evening meal, which is the key meal, having whether steamed fish, stir-fry meat, vegetable dish, a steamed rice, you gather around with your family and friends to eat. And that is every day. So hence, when you're looking at establishments, restaurants, it's a feeding place of feeding all the families to come unite together to eat.
And boy, did we unite to eat. Geoff treated us to a culinary trek through China and its huge variety of regional cuisines. From classics like sweet and sour pork, to Cantonese seafood vermicelli, to a sensational dry wok dish of lotus root and chili from Dongbei. And that, somehow, was just to whet our appetites for the dumpling main event. Chung fun, har gao, xiaolong bao, pork siu mai, and, unique to Dumplings Legend, a fantastic duck dumpling. I can't think of many places where you can experience such a variety of flavor and travel so far within one cuisine's culture. All freshly made in-house. That, to me, is what is so mind-blowing about good Chinese food.
Every dish you see in a Chinese menu is all made. Whether it's the sweet and sour sauce that's made with the orange peel, the chili in a large vat, these are all hand-cooked, hand-loved recipes passed down. Dumplings and quality is down to chef's relationship with customers.
London's Chinatown is also a very vivid reminder that food has always been the great unifier.
Everyone who come across the entire China come to London, and often you get Chinese students from Hong Kong, from Shanghai, from Dongbei, from Xinjiang. Wow, they all can order their own favorite dish in one restaurant. You can't even get that. So undoubtedly, I think, certainly from my recent research, I think London's Chinatown is probably the most incredible diversity of regional Chinese food, but also it's probably one of the best on offer within this 3 streets. And no other places, not even China, not even, I think, any other Chinatown can compete with what we've seen. The hard work with many other community who started that journey, what Chinatown did 50 years ago to what it is now.
Geoff is a true ambassador for all that is great about Chinatown. Not just food, but a sense of community, a sense of work ethic, a sense of quality, and a sense of pride in everything that this sliver of London represents. Chinatowns are beacons to me. I am inexorably drawn to them, and none is more special to me than London's Chinatown. I will take long, meandering detours from point A to point B just so I can walk through its bustling streets for a moment or two. Whether you live here in London like me, or you're here for an hour, a day, or a week, I assure you your time is always well spent in Chinatown.